Today, we're going to talk about switching from the old model of business, which is built on scarcity. There's never enough. You have to work hard. You have to do everything. We are not enough. Our work is not enough. It's not good enough, right? That is the old model that is still circulating. Honestly, it's still circulating for now in our society, but hopefully with the work that all of us are doing, we can shift. And so that's actually less common. And we see less of that mentality, that hustle, that grind mentality.
Yes. Yeah. I think that this is the beginning of everyone kind of unpacking these things that aren't working. They're no longer serving, kind of just moving and being led into your own unique path.
The first thing that we want to share as we go through these is, so how do you know if something's for you or not? Well, the easiest way is like, do you feel excited about doing that? Is that something that you are curious about? You're drawn to? A lot of you guys have mentioned in group sessions like, oh, I get excited about speaking, or I get excited about this, or I'm interested in writing. Like, that is a sign that you should follow that avenue of marketing. If you feel like you should be doing something, that's usually a sign that that is not the path for you.
Yeah, and this can also come up just in terms of comfort zone. It's very comforting to do the things that you're used to doing.
Mm-hmm.
It can feel a little scary to the mind to change and to go in a new direction, one that maybe not a lot of people are doing, and maybe one that's not as straightforward. The mind is very logical, it's very linear, but like your soul is more, it's nonlinear. And it's more intuitive, and that's where it's like you're going to be able to accomplish more with less effort. And that's how that's possible. The business strategies are giving you very concrete things of like, this is exactly what you need to be doing. And again, a lot of us have found comfort.
The mind likes that too.
Yeah, and that it's so specific. Yeah, the mind really loves that because it's so straightforward.
This is the plan. This is the routine. I know what to expect.
Yes.
It's safe.
Yes. We also know this to be the masculine approach versus the feminine. The feminine is more like, hey, we're not worried about it. We're flowing. We're fluid. And we're not sure where we're going to end up or how we're going to get there. But that's the difference between those two.
Yeah. And part of this, right, is trusting the process. So you're feeling guided to go one way, but it's different than you have been taught or that society will say, like, can you trust that you're being guided there for a reason and that the best outcome will come, right? Really, when we trust our soul and we create a plan, because we're not saying don't create a plan for your business, create a plan with marketing ideas and strategies that feel good to you, that you get excited about, but then don't feel like you have to do them. Step into that state Peter was just talking about, that fluid flow state where you're like, and I talk about opportunities list. It's like, this is my business plan. This is all of the things that I'm planning on doing. But if at any time it doesn't feel good, it doesn't feel aligned, I'm getting a download that this actually isn't something I want to do today, this week, then move to the next thing. Don't do it just because you said you were going to do it or you have to do it.
It's good to have a balance of both modes where like you do have a plan and you can come up with that using kind of like your intellect, like, okay, this is kind of like the plan that I'm going to follow. But then you allow your intuition to help you make the twists and turns along the way. And to steer away from the things that you have resistance to, or maybe you're not going to do something next just because it's next on the list. You're going to skip ahead, or maybe you're just going to try something different. So really using both of those at the same time. But yeah, that's just like an idea, because like coming back, like really this topic in this video is unpacking of the business strategies. So helping you kind of detach from those things that you're doing right now that you're used to doing, and it might be time to kind of, deviate from that. Kind of
choose your next adventure.
Yeah, your new direction. Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about this beforehand, this idea of like, if you want different results than what you had in the past, do something differently, right? If you're like, I'm not happy with where my business was going, right? I'm not happy with the results that I've been getting. And then the method has been social media, and you don't like social media. You gotta release the social media. You gotta switch it up. Otherwise, you're gonna get those same results, right? If it's not feeling aligned, I know it can feel really scary, but can you baby step your way to that thing that you really like? So I mentioned this idea of like blowing up resistance, and for me, I had resistance to collaborations. I had resistance to like asking for like support from other people when it comes to like our online business. And it was like, I got tired of feeling that way. I got tired of using my old methods, and I got tired of feeling this like resistance inside, this like push pull. And so I'm like, I'm just gonna go for it, like I'm gonna remove all resistance. That's the path that I'm on. And it feels so much better. So permission for you to do the same thing if you resonate. Okay, let's unpack some of these. We're gonna start with social media.
Yeah, and social media is a really big one. Again, this training is like, it's really helpful for those that have taken on a lot and are continuing to do a lot. And social media is one of those, there's a lot of really needing to be creating content is like, wow, like it takes a lot of energy and it takes a lot of time. Mm-hmm. One of the big ones right now, as we're filming this, is short form videos. Mm-hmm. So Instagram Reels, TikTok. Mm-hmm. And a 15-second video is taking you 2 or 3 hours, which is like just craziness in terms of playing that game. And there's a lot of strategies to follow. And then there's also a lot of pressure to fit into what everybody else is doing. We find comfort in that, but experts they always cite like, hey, this is how you go about it. And then everybody's kind of following that.
Yeah. It's like, there was like a time where in Launch Coach Grow, we were doing like reel trends where we would say like, hey, this is a trending audio. This is how you can do it. And a lot of coaches really liked it. But I got to this point where I was like, I don't want to be putting coaches into this box of like, hey, this is what you have to do because this is like what's popular and this is what's trending. Because if I give you an idea for like a reel that you should do, and then you do it, that takes away from the idea that your higher self would give you to do on your own, right? And so I was like, I don't want to do that anymore, because essentially I'm like putting you guys in a box because you're like, oh, Sarah's like the expert, like I hired her and like she said to do this. I was thinking about this, but now I'm going to do this, right? And like, I don't want that. That does not feel good. And I know that that is not the most powerful, the most, I guess, just the best use of your time and like your energy.
Yeah, the social media platforms, like they reward users. They will push your video. You guys probably already know this. They will reward you as a content creator when you do things that they like to be done. So like when you're using trending audios, for example, or when you are engaging with other people, or when you have consistency, like when you're posting new stuff on a regular basis, or when you've been shared by somebody else, or you collaborate with somebody and it's like, or you're doing stories. It's like, they really want you to use all of the features of the platform all of the time.
And beyond all of the time.
Beyond all of the time. The more you're on, the more you do, the more you're rewarded.
And so part of it with it is, I've talked to lots of coaches who have had like a lot of reels go viral, but then they feel like I need to keep doing this and I need to keep this up, right? And that's where I think it can be problematic too, because then it's like you're creating just to create, like you actually don't want to, you'd rather take time off, but they feel like I'm going to lose this. I should capitalize on this, right? And that is still being stuck in this scarcity model of like, it's never enough. And then what happens? Coaches burn out and then they don't want to do it at all anymore. We have to unpack this and again, like build a business that you get excited about showing up for. And that is your life's work, right? And like shares your gifts. So that's kind of like the issue with like reels. There's also this like DMing, right? Like DM people, DM your followers. And I've said this before and I still do this. Like I do use the DMs for my Instagram followers. Like when new people come, like I want to know, like, why are you following me? Like, what kind of content do you want to see? Like, where did you come from? Do you know one of my clients? Like, all of that. That feels very in alignment for me. However, some feel like they need to DM people, this is my program. Hey, this is my offering. Hey, this is that, right? Or they need to DM a certain amount of people a day. Like, we've had coaches message us saying, like, hey, I was in this program and they said I have to reach out to 100 people every single week. And I hadn't done that. And so they made me do it during our group session. And she's like, it felt very salesy and uncomfortable, right? So that's another method that, like, again, if it doesn't feel right to you, like, it's probably not going to work for you.
Yeah. Your inner guidance is telling you to do something else, or you have a preference for showing up in a different manner, and so if you honor that, you are then rewarded by the universe. If you're going to continue doing those things that you don't want to do, the universe is just going to kind of continue to give you the reality that you are currently in. It's just going to continue to be the same, So basically, everything that you've experienced will just be continuing to show up just like that.
I guess, like, just with social media, if you feel called to share or be creative, know that you can do it in a way that feels good to you, right? Some people will say, like, you need to be consistent. You need to show up every day. So then, like, I was just on a call and she was just like, should I just, like, be posting stuff to, like, keep my account alive, like, while I figure out what I really want to do? That's really hard to figure out what you want to do if you're then feeling like I should be posting something. It's like your energy is being pulled in these two different directions, So just know, like, if you actually like social media, but, like, you need a break, that's fine. You can take a big old break. If you just have one thing you want to share and then you want to be done, that's fine too. I guess just permission to do it your way and, like, create your own plan, strategy, like how you use it. But again, like, the roadmap is really, like, following your joy, following what excites you.
Yeah, you get to you don't have to follow the rules. I was going to say you get to make your own rules, but there are no rules. That's the rule. There are no rules. So yeah, or it's like, I guess you could make it a rule of, like, you're following your joy, and you're not doing the things that you don't feel called to do. Yeah, it feels so simple sometimes, but so challenging.
Yeah, I know.
At the same time, because we're comfortable with doing it, and we think about these things that we've done in the past, and they got us the result that we were looking for. It's like, I don't know.
Could the result have been better? If you would have done something joyful versus doing that? Did that lead you to where you are now? Like, was that a stepping stone? You know what I mean? Like, there's just so many things. But at the end of the day, I always come back to, like, what feels good to me right now? Where do I want to go moving forward? What's the reality I want to create? What's the life I want to create for myself? And that helps me. The next one, I mean, it could be social media, but, like, the overall theme of this, like, next, like, business strategy we want to unpack is to do more and be everywhere. And one thing I saw on Facebook this week where it was like, there's no good reason why not to repurpose all of your content. Pretty much you should be repurposing all of your content and putting it everywhere. And immediately my reaction was, well, if it doesn't bring you joy, that's a good reason, right? If you don't want to be everywhere, that's a good reason. We've
all gotten into this habit of creating very surface level content and lots of it.
So much.
And every once in a while, you'll come across a piece of content that somebody really put some love and energy into. And there's so much depth there. And you really, like, can connect with it. That is the type of content that you should be aiming for, or should you?
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
For sure. It's like,
I know I just gave you a should.
Yeah.
But you can kind of see that, like, when you're really passionate about something, you're just giving more to it. And then you don't have to do as much of it.
One thing with this for me personally is I have a lot of ideas and a lot of things I want to, like, share and create. And I think part of my path is helping others move along on their journey and, like, share their gifts. And so for me, I have, like, a lot of downloads where if I don't share them, I kind of get cranky. Like I start feeling like, oh, like I need to share, like I'm excited about sharing this. And so for me, I actually am creating more content than a lot of people probably, but it feels very good to me and it feels very natural. But again, I don't want to feel like I need to put it on all the places if I don't want to put it on all of the places. Some things I get a direct download. This is just for your Facebook group. I am very connected to where I should share things. But for me, usually it's like, this is the message. This is what I want to talk about. And then the shape that it takes looks very different. Sometimes it's stories, you know? So I guess like, don't feel like you have to repurpose your content. Because then like you can spend all this time. And then another thing I hear often is like, oh, what scheduler should I use? You know, let me just like schedule it all.
A lot of what we're talking about makes me think about how like we've become robots. And this feels robotic when you're always doing things the same way. You're like, okay, I do this piece of content and I'm sharing it all these places. And I always do it the same way in the same manner using these tools that are literally robots themselves to get at all these places all at the same time. You know, obviously you can do that, but
I think if that's like if that's joyful for you, you like all the tools and like, you know, like that is fun for you to research them. And again, like there's a reason why certain things were created. Like I'll give you another example. There's a business owner who creates like done for you content. And I always had like this judgment around it. I've worked through it, you know, Sarah, becoming a more highly evolved person and like removing judgment. But I always had this judgment around it where it's like, if somebody gives you done for you content, then like it's not your own. It's going to look like everybody else's and like you have your own superpower. But then I was talking to the business owner and she was telling me how she loves creating content for other people. And that's so fun for her. And I could tell that it brings her a lot of joy, right? And it's like, I'm not one to judge somebody else's joy. Like, that's what I want. That's what I'm all about. So I feel like the same thing is if like researching tools and scheduling and planning and that's really your thing, then like that's cool.
Yeah, it's kind of like that's like the power of generalizations, you know, is there's always kind of like the exception, you know.
We like it to be like black and white. It's like it's either this or it's this.
Yeah.
But it's not.
It never is. Yeah.
Okay. You want to talk about sense of urgency or sales psychology?
Well, they both are kind of like similar. So like one thing that we have been unlearning for quite a while that was instilled in us in like the beginning was like to get to use sales psychology and use fear. They didn't say it as fear though. They use words like scarcity, like there's only a limited number of spaces available in a program or a limited number of bonuses or you can join for a limited amount of time.
I see a lot of emails that say hurry, you know, and like I'm just so it's like hurry, get going, act fast.
Basically, it's just it's lack, you know, and it's fear and it's pressure, you know. So when there's like the reason why a lot of people like doing live launches is because it's like you have to get in or the doors close, the program starts and you're going to miss out and maybe they'll never do it again, you know, and like we would do that too because it would work. But what would happen is we would always have a few people that would join and it wasn't a good fit. They weren't ready for it. We convinced them that this thing that wasn't in their best interest that they should do it. And then they start doing it and they're like, oh, this is not aligned. And then they're frustrated. And then they want their money back. And if there's a no refund policy, now they're upset. And the other community members or people in the program are also kind of exposed to this as well. This energy of this person that's just not happy, doesn't want to be there, doesn't want to be in the program. So yeah, like this is what you get into when you convince people, and that's what we're not doing that anymore. We're not convincing people to join, but when you convince them to join, or when you use sales tactics.
Well, what's
another
so
one is
crazy?
Like sales calls as well.
What's so crazy too with this is like I would always say like I'm not going to convince you to join. And like I would, like if I ever did a sales call or something, I would just be like, does this sound like something that you want to do? Like, do you feel comfortable doing this? Right. So those of you who know us, like we're never on being like, hey, like we need to take your credit card. Hey, let's go. But like Peter's saying, when you do a live launch, it does put pressure on people to feel like if I don't sign up right now, I'm going to miss this. Whereas if you remove that and just trust that people will sign up when it's the best time for them, there isn't a sense of urgency and people are more aligned for your program, right? So yeah, just kind of like keeping that in mind if like you are using that for your emails and like your marketing. Again, like I guess we're like not saying again that like don't do live launches or like group programs. Those have like a start date and an end date, right? But just be aware that some people might feel like Peter was saying, like you're convincing them or like they feel pressured. I guess I'm trying to think of like what's the takeaway here? What are you supposed to do with it? But maybe you just take away like what you need from this.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of like an awareness thing. I mean, like honestly, like all of these things were kind of in our toolkit, and then we would just kind of deploy them like whenever we felt like we could benefit from them.
Yeah, I think that's another thing is like thinking about like, are you doing this out of love for what you're doing and the people? Like for us, like we're obsessed with this program, right? We love it and like we know how life-changing it is. So like when we're talking or sharing things or I'm like, hey, like this is what's happening this week. If you want to join us, like join us. Like it is coming from love. But if I was to say something like, hey, like you got to sign up tonight, otherwise like you're going to miss out on this thing, like that's probably coming from fear, right? It's coming from fear. And I do think people can feel that. And I think more people are waking up to that and feeling that now. So just asking yourself, I think you said deploying this strategy, this tool from a place of love or from a place of fear? That's like a great way to tell if it's for you or not. Another thing that we played with, like it's interesting. This was like such an aha and like a wake up when we learned like, oh, like we have like a lot of scarcity and fear in our business and like that doesn't feel good. We don't want to do that. We want to like shift, I think it came around like Black Friday. And we were like, I don't want to do a Black Friday sale. Like, I don't want to be marketing my business like during this holiday, which we had done for years and years and years. And so it was just like, oh my gosh, like all of these marketing tools no longer feel aligned. Like, what are we going to do? Right. And then like the solutions just started to present themselves, new ideas. Right. So it's like, hey, we're launching this program. It's new. Like, we would love to give you, an extra bonus call or like the early bird pricing as our way of saying like thanks and thank you for your support, right? It's like there are ways that you can market your business, so it's not like I don't want anybody to freak out because it can kind of be, if you've been in business for a while, it can kind of be shocking where it's like, whoa, everything in my toolbox is out. My toolbox is blank, but it's like, you are connected to source energy, right? Like you are connected, like you have the answers within you.
It's not that you can't use the stuff that you've learned,
Totally.
But it's recognizing kind of like your old patterns and then pulling back the cover a little bit and being like, okay, why am I using this? Why do I feel like I need to use this? And that's kind of the whole point of this training. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you want to talk about the pain points?
Another thing that we were kind of taught to do was to sell to people's pain points. The idea of focusing on somebody's pain to sell them is, that's ever since doing like this spiritual work, it's just like, great. Yeah, I'm just like, it just kind of feels like I'm just like exploiting their pain, is really what it is. I'm using their pain for my gain,
Yeah. Another thing that has always been in alignment for me and still is like when I think about sales, I've always been this way. When I think about sales, at the end of the day, I think about connection. And if I can connect with somebody and learn about them and how I can help them, then that relationship is prosperous for both of us, right? So keep that in mind too. If you are working on sales in your business, it's like, how can you form relationships? How can you think about how you can serve others? We talk about calling in your people, right? And that's like a visualization. And really it's focused on how you can serve other people. But the same thing is true with sales. It's like forming connections, like I like connecting you guys to each other. And it's not because I'm like, oh, this person is going to give this person clients. It's like, who knows where that will go? It could go a collaboration. It could go, maybe you have a client, like it could go so many ways. So that might be helpful for you to think about it too. If you are like, okay, I don't like this sales tactic. I don't like this. Like at the end of the day, it's like market your business from a place of love. And when you think about sales, just think about connection. How can I connect and learn what's going on with people? Maybe like we form like a friendship and like naturally, usually like that forms sales and clients. Like if you are just focused on being of service, like it comes back to you, right? The money comes back to you, the joy, the happiness, it comes back to you. So I guess that's what I wanted to say about sales. For me too, like I've seen books over the years, and I see posts about like sales psychology, and people will message me all the time. I'm going to do a post on this. It's coming. But I get so many DMs, and you might too, where it's like, hey, Sarah, like, can I close like $20,000 for you this month? Can I like increase your close rate by this amount? And I'm just the same, kind of tying it back to connection. I am always thinking like, I don't want anybody to be closed. I want everybody to be open. Like, I don't want that. Like, I want connection, right? Like, if they message me and like, hey, Sarah, like, I love your program. It's so powerful. I know 5 people who would benefit from it. Can I connect you with them? I'd be like, yeah, that sounds great, right? It's very different.
The selling process really feels like your success is how much money you're making. And so sales is like the goal. Mm-hmm. If you can make the sales, that's the goal. So you have a sales department. What they want is they want every person that comes across them to be closed, like they're like a file or something, like that's where it's coming from. It's like you've got all these salespeople and like that's their objective. Mm-hmm. And a lot of salespeople are rewarded with commission. Mm-hmm. So now you have the added motivation to sell somebody this program no matter what. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter if it's a good fit for them or not. They're getting their commission anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like we have run a business where we're doing sales calls and live launches. And like Peter was saying, like you end up like, I just remember our business just a few years ago feeling very different, where all these people needed all this stuff from me all the time, right? It's like, yeah, I was making more money than I had previously. And so it could be like, oh, like, Sarah, your guys' business is so successful. It's doing so well because you have this money coming in, but it didn't feel so well. It didn't feel so great, like waking up and having like all of these people like asking for things from me, wanting things from me, right? So keep that in mind too. I know like we do have a lot of new business owners. If you're watching this and you're just getting started and you're like, oh, like the money, like I just want the money. The money would be so great. Like I want to leave my job or whatever. Like just know like you can have it both. Like you don't have to sacrifice your joy, your time, your family in order to then make the sales, help people, be of service. Still with it. Okay. So how do you run a heart-centered business? Well, one, tap into your inner guidance, right? And you follow that joy. But some things that I wrote down that you might want to think about is like, who do you want to help? Who do you want to help? Can you talk about that? Can you write that down? Can you visualize them? Like, what does that look like for you? And then how do you want to help them? What feels in a joyful way for us? Like we just launched this radio show. That feels really good for us. That's like feel good marketing. Mm-hmm. Anything else you want to say about that?
About the radio show?
Yeah, just about like feel good marketing and like helping people in a way that is authentic for.
Yeah, well, like at the moment, we've been feeling like we don't want to be doing as much social media and doing like social media content, a lot of stuff that we were talking about at the beginning of this video. And so we were really just kind of like trying to figure out a way, like how can we help people incorporate some of this stuff that we're talking about in this program before joining the program.
Mhm.
How can we help people in like a deeper way?
Mhm.
Because in a 15-second video, there's only so much you can
Hard.
take. It's like,
Mhm.
I feel like right now I feel like we hear a lot of like, oh, I watched this TikTok, or I learned this in a TikTok. It's like, but like how long was that? It's like you feel very confident about what you learned, but I think this stuff that we're teaching, I think it is at like a little bit of a deeper level. Not to say like some of these things probably can be taught on that, but we also want to have like more of like a connection with people as well.
And it's like, what are our gifts? Some people are really concise, but like Peter said before, like he is not a get to the point kind of guy.
Yeah.
Right? And some of you have said the same thing. Like, I can't summarize everything I'm teaching in a 90-second video.
Yeah.
Yes, babe, they can be 90 seconds, not 15 seconds.
Well, and like the longer it is, the less likely that platform is going to push it. They really, Sarah says, maybe, maybe not.
Yeah, we create our own reality, right?
Well, yeah, I agree with that.
So, okay, so I wanted to share that because the radio show, it did come naturally. So that's another thing for you to keep in mind too. If you're putting too much pressure on it to figure out what's my new marketing plan, my strategy, go for a walk. Like, do something that sounds fun and like let it come to you. It will come to you if this is what you're supposed to be doing. Again, just questions that you can think about if you're like totally like feeling like lost, right? Where can you reach them? Where can you reach your people, right? Like what feels good in terms of like, who are they? How do you want to help them? And like, where are they? Like go to those places, talk about what you do. And then another thing to ask yourself is like, what do you get excited about creating? We got excited about doing a radio show and talking and interacting with people. You might not. You might get excited about writing a book. Cool. Awesome. Do that. Follow your joy.
Let us know if you have any questions about any of the stuff that we've talked about. And we'd love to hear kind of like your thoughts on some of these things that we talked about as well.
Yeah. If there's a strategy that you're like, I don't know about this, like what, and you want us to talk about it, happy to.
Awesome.
All right. Until next time. Bye. I'm wrapping this up. He's like, her computer's going to die. That for me, that's like, can I finish this video before it dies? That's how I operate.
She's crazy. One is funny because I plugged it in, but it must not be plugged into the outlet. It's not charging.
Okay, so